Let's be completely honest for a second. The survival horror genre almost died entirely, and the franchise that nearly killed it was the exact same one that invented it. The story of Resident Evil isn't just about zombies and evil corporations. It is the wildest emotional roller coaster in gaming history. It's a story of a franchise defining a generation, letting corporate greed and action movie tropes completely destroy its identity, and then pulling off the single greatest comeback the gaming industry has ever seen. If we want to talk about how this series lost its mind, we have to look at how it built its empire. Picture this. It's 1996. Director Shinji Mikami drops the original Resident Evil on the PlayStation, and it literally coins the term survival horror. Before this, horror in games was mostly just tough enemies, but Resident Evil weaponized your own vulnerability. You were trapped in the Spencer Mansion with clunky tank controls, awkward fixed camera angles, and an inventory so small, you had to choose between carrying bullets or a green herb. Even saving your game cost a physical item, the legendary ink ribbons, and those agonizingly slow door-opening animations that masked the loading screens. They built a level of pure, stomach-dropping tension that defined the PS1 era. The impact was massive. Resident Evil single-handedly spawned an entire wave of copycats. Without it, we wouldn't have gotten Silent Hill, Dino Crisis, or Fatal Frame. Through Resident Evil 2, Nemesis, and Code Veronica, Capcom was untouchable. But behind the scenes, a massive shift was happening. In 2002, Capcom released the absolute masterpiece Resident Evil Remake exclusively for the GameCube, and it didn't sell well. Shinji Mikami was crushed. He realized the slow-burn horror formula was losing mainstream appeal. So, he took a massive gamble and completely rewrote the rulebook. In 2005, Resident Evil 4 launched, and it didn't just change the franchise, it changed the entire gaming industry. They ditched the fixed cameras, moved the perspective over Leon Kennedy's shoulder, and cranked up the pacing. The moment you walked into that European village and heard the roar of Dr. Salvador's chainsaw, gaming changed forever. It was action-heavy, sure, but it was still incredibly stressful. RE4 was such a masterpiece that it directly influenced the combat of Gears of War, Dead Space, and eventually, The Last of Us. But its overwhelming success was a double-edged sword. Capcom looked at those massive sales numbers and took away the absolute worst lesson possible. They thought, if action sells, let's just make it a Hollywood blockbuster. And just like that, the Dark Ages began. In 2009, we got Resident Evil 5. It was a fun co-op shooter, but the horror was dead. You were running around in broad daylight, fighting enemies with Gatling guns. And yes, this is the game where a steroid-pumped Chris Redfield literally punches a massive boulder inside an active volcano. The gaming community was divided. It sold incredibly well, but purists felt betrayed. Then, in 2012, we hit absolute rock bottom with Resident Evil 6. Capcom tried to chase the Call of Duty crowd. The game was a bloated, directionless mess featuring global terrorist plots, helicopter explosions, and characters dual-wielding pistols while sliding around like action heroes. The survival horror roots were completely obliterated. The impact of this fall was felt across the entire gaming industry. EA publishers literally declared that survival horror was dead. EA killed off Dead Space around this exact same time. The hardcore horror community was starved, which left a massive void. This was the era where indie games like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and Outlast had to step up to give gamers the scares they were begging for. And when Hideo Kojima dropped the legendary PT demo in 2014, it proved that millions of people still desperately wanted pure claustrophobic terror. Capcom was backed into a corner. RE6 had destroyed their reputation. They needed a hard reset. And in 2017, they pulled off the impossible. Resident Evil 7. Biohazard dropped, and it completely shocked the gaming world. Capcom threw away the explosions and the global stakes. They shifted to a suffocating first-person perspective, trapped you in a rotting, disgusting plantation in Louisiana, and introduced the terrifying Baker family. Powered by the brand new RE engine, the game was raw, visceral, and genuinely horrifying. RE7 didn't just save the franchise, it resurrected AAA survival horror from the dead. But Capcom was just warming up. They realized their history was a goldmine, and in 2019, they released the Resident Evil 2 remake. It was a cultural reset. They perfectly blended the modern over-the-shoulder gameplay of RE4 with the terrifying resource-starved horror of 1998. The community went absolutely insane, especially over Mr. X. His heavy, echoing footsteps dynamically hunting you through the police station spawned a million memes and set the absolute gold standard for how video game remakes should be handled. From there, Capcom couldn't miss. Resident Evil Village broke the internet in 2021. You couldn't log on to Twitter or YouTube without seeing Lady Dimitrescu taking over the entire gaming community. And then, in 2023, they did the unthinkable. They successfully remade Resident Evil 4, somehow improving upon a game that people already considered perfect. Today, Resident Evil is the gold standard of gaming redemptions. Other franchises like Need for Speed or Halo struggled to find their footing after losing their way. But Capcom actually listened to the fans. They realized that you can't chase mainstream action trends forever without losing the soul of your game. By stripping away the bloat, turning off the lights, and making us terrified of what's waiting behind the next door, Resident Evil fought its way out of the grave and took back its crown.